first bullpen there in front of like Angel staff, and I'm like dotting it. And I was like, hey, watch this. And so I like took a fastball and I just like reared back and skied it like right at his face, you know, because there was a fence back there. He was behind the fence.
I love that.
You guys are old, you must suck, you know? And I looked him straight in the eyes and I was like, the big leagues.
Yeah.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, you know? I was like, but what do you want me to do? Tim Bogart would look at me and the manager and he was like, hey man, you're going to the big leagues.
That's an incredible story.
What's up, everybody? Hope you guys enjoyed the first part of Mike Roth's episode where we heard about his freshman year and getting thrown in the fire, him going on to win 2 national championships. But we took a little break for someone that really deserved it.
Yep, Coach Tanner, man, that was pretty awesome, man. Yeah, I had to take a little break, but yeah, part 2's coming up now.
Yep, I mean,
I guess today.
Yeah, there were, I think close to 100 players, former coaches came back to support Coach Tanner. What he did was incredible here, winning 2 national championships, 29 years serving the Garnet and Black as head coach and then as AD. So it was really cool to watch kind of the troops rally around him and support him. And supposedly there was a roast.
Really?
Yes. I just heard some rumblings about it. I don't know if it actually happened or not, but
We got to find out. That'd be funny as hell if it did.
would have loved to have been a fly on the wall during that to listen in on that. But Coach Spurrier should let us have a roast of him.
Yeah, there's no way he would ever let us do that. He would get so pissed off so quick. That would be funny as hell, though.
Yeah, but we left off with Mike Roth after his second national championship, so 2011, his junior year, and then kind of this episode is going to tee off into 2012 and another incredible year he had from a statistical standpoint and leading the Gamecocks back to the College World Series. And then, boy, he's a hell of a storyteller, but I don't think these stories needed much telling. Some of his professional stories were hilarious.
Unbelievable.
I mean,
It's unbelievable, man. It's I actually FaceTimed him on our birthday on Saturday, and he's with a bunch of those like McKinley Stevens and all those guys. They were having a good time. They were having a good time out there in Tulum.
yeah, but really hope everybody enjoys the second part of Mike's episode. It was so good, we had to make 2 out of it.
Home Team Barbecue is fired up to take care of your tailgate and watch party needs this season. Home Team is known for its smoked meats, creative daily specials, and twists on Southern classic. Smoked wings, ribs, pulled pork sliders, barbecue nachos, or classic sides like mac and cheese and collard greens are the perfect feast to fuel your game day. Round up your friends and give Home Team Catering a shout at catering@hometeambarbecue.com or head to 5 Points for a frozen game changer cocktail and barbecue snacks to celebrate the next Gamecocks big win. Visit hometeambarbecue.com to check out the menu. Looking for the perfect spot to unwind? Steelhead Brewing in Casey has you covered. Whether you're craving a refreshing craft beer or just a great time with friends and family, Steel Hands has it all. With a variety of craft beers, spacious outdoor beer gardens, and a delicious food menu, there's something for everyone. Plus, join them for free live music every Thursday through Sunday. Visit steelhandsbrewing.com to see their lineup of upcoming events or host your own. Handforce and Casey and voted best local brewery again this year. Go visit steelhandsbrewing.com.
All right, you carnivores, we got a new sponsor, JCQ Farms, located off 177 Saluda Bluff Road in Batesburg, South Carolina. Huge Gamecock family, folks. So they have grass-fed beef, pasture-raised pork, and they have absolutely no antibiotics, no hormones, and all of the animals are treated humanely. They also practice regenerative farming. Right now, their top sellers are tomahawk ribeyes, cowboy ribeyes, fillets, bacon, and this primal ground beef mixture. It's heart, liver, and beef mix. If you're going to get any sort of meat, get it from here, folks.
What happened in 12?
Yeah, I mean, like, we had a good team, you know, like, we had some pitching. We had some really good young guys like Grayson Griner, Joey Pancake as freshmen. They were idiots, you know.
Yep. They're supposed to be elite.
Yeah. And, but it was like we had a good team, but we just, like, we had to figure out who we were because we had a lot more young guys, and a lot of them were playing. Like, I think we probably had 4 or 5 guys young, like that were younger that were, you know, contributing. And so it was a little bit different vibe, but we were still good. Like,
Yep.
you
Right.
still had some really good pitching. Price was back, and so you had a good group of guys. And come back in and we played Clemson in a regional. Like we ended up playing Clemson in playoffs that year.
Yep.
And there was a back and forth between a guy that went to Citadel.
I'll do one more bit.
There was a player that went to Citadel, and then he ended up serving some time. He was at the Citadel and then went to Clemson, and he hit a big home run off Brice, and
I remember who that was. Yeah.
and
He hung out in Columbia.
he hung out in Columbia for a little bit. Yeah. But yeah, he hit a big home run, and then we came back and like beat Clemson. That was like funny because we felt like we owned Clemson at that time. I think my sophomore year, Clemson kicked our ass at home, and like since then we like never lost like another series against them. You know, like we won at the College World Series, and it was like we had
Next year.
we
Just
had
their
like
number.
we had mine.
Yep.
You know, they were just like,
Yeah.
they just
Who
like
is this
couldn't
team?
play against us.
It's
And
kind
so-
of like football.
Yeah.
We beat their ass. I mean, it ended up being 5 years in a row.
Right.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah, y'all did the same thing. Like, and that I think that can happen, right? Like, you feel good and like you just walk on the field and it's not
You
like
just know.
it's just confidence that you have. Like you're not throwing your gloves out there and just knowing that it's gonna happen. Like you just walk out there with all the confidence in the world, and it's you're not playing tight. You're not worried about losing.
Right.
And it always felt like when we were playing them, they were worried about losing.
Well, dude, that is interesting because, like, I guess in the world of baseball, getting drafted as a junior, you have all the leverage in the world because you can drive price, you can get your signing bonus. Versus coming back, you're kind of like, well, what else are you gonna do? So we're only gonna give you this.
I learned about leverage real quick. I didn't
Yeah.
know it.
What round did you get drafted after your junior year versus your senior year?
Yeah, so your junior year, you have that leverage, but they want to tell you a number,
Yep.
and I didn't have an agent. So they were like, hey, if we take you here, will you sign? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I was like, what's the, like, they're like, what will you sign for? And I'm like, what will you pay me?
Yeah.
That's what
I'm negotiating right now.
and what I've learned in real estate is like, yeah, never give your number first, like that's kind of what I would do a lot of times. And I don't know where I picked that up when I was, a junior negotiating against
21
these,
years old.
these billion-dollar enterprises myself. But yeah, they want to know like what you'll sign for. Like, is it $100,000 or is it $250,000? And so I would always tell them, I'd be like, I don't know, like, what am I worth? Like, like where do you think you should draft me? And so I fell to the 31st round my junior year. And I had some people call me like in the earlier rounds, but I didn't play the game that they wanted me to play. And then my senior year, I got drafted higher. I got drafted in the 9th round, but that was when they switched the draft all around.
Salary cap.
Yeah, so they basically
rookie caps.
Yeah, they did like hard. There was like hard caps, or there was like slot money numbers, which there always was. But in the first 10 rounds, you had X amount of dollars to spend, and if you saved money from your first 10 rounds, you could pay it on the lower rounds.
Yep.
So they drafted me in the 9th round as a senior sign, which slot money was like $120,000, and then knowing like they had leverage over me, and they offered the rest of the $100,000 of my signing bonus to somebody else.
Damn it.
In fact, I remember sitting at like Harper's, and Harper's was right there.
Yep.
After 2012, we had lost, and they were like, all right, like, here's a contract, we'll pay you $20,000 and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, all right, that's great, but like, why don't you just pay me the slot money? And they're like, this is what we're offering.
We don't
And I
have
was,
to
and
at
I was
this
like, I need to think about it.
What else am I going to do?
Yeah, I mean,
Starting real estate early.
they called my bluff, so I signed for
funny.
$20,000 and went out to Orem,
That was awesome.
Orem, Utah.
Is that incredible?
No, it was terrible, man.
Minor league baseball. Like tell us about the transition of college ball to pro ball, but the minor league life. Like not many people know about the minor league.
Dude, I hated my first assignment in pro ball. It was miserable, and part of it was just you're coming off of of a college season.
3 years
Yeah.
on high, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're at Carolina, like you feel like you're in the big leagues.
Yep.
Right.
You know, you get treated like you're in the big leagues. And so I went to Orem, Utah, but I'd thrown 140 innings that year at Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I got there, they're like, "Hey man, like you've thrown 140 innings.
You're old.
Like we're gonna let you like throw 20 more, you know." And so they made me a starter, but I was only throwing 2 innings. Like I would max out at like 30 pitches.
Mhm.
So, you know, I'd get like my whole thing, do my 2 innings, and then you're like gone. And I would be like, man, I'm just like getting warmed up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like this is bullshit. And then you sit for 4 more days. I mean, but it was like,
Did you hit BP though?
no,
No,
I-
there's
all
no
that
BP no BP
fun
then,
stuff was
yeah.
done, you know?
Well, how
Now it's
real
business.
is Eastbound and Down then? I mean, was that like Kenny Powers?
Kenny Powers.
Yeah, I mean, was that kind of similar stuff?
Dude,
It's
I
exact same.
played down in the Dominican. never played in Mexico like old Kenny. But I played in
But
the
I mean,
Dominican.
some of the stuff,
Some of the stuff is so real. Like, you know, and it's
I can only imagine the
changed.
characters that
Oh
were
yeah.
on some of those things.
I mean, especially, that was short season ball. So like that season started like early June or July. Like it would follow the draft. Like everybody get drafted, and they would send a lot of those guys there. So like I played with some guys, you know, that had just been drafted, or you play with some like younger Dominican guys, and like, I mean, you're with a host family, like, and it's not bad. But also we're in Orem, Utah, which is like Provo. We're right next to BYU, and so it's funny. We all like, you know, after a game, you're
Mormon
like,
Central,
yeah, it was Mormon Central and great people, but not great to drink it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like,
Well,
like
what do we
went
do?
out,
Yeah.
Like,
What do we do now?
yeah, like I showed up, you know, later, not like, I guess like later into the season. And so after the game, I was like, so is there anything to do? They're like, yeah, we go to like Logan's. And so you'd have to go to Logan's
Steakhouse.
Roadhouse.
A
Yeah.
Roadhouse, yeah,
And
nice.
you could order beers, but you'd have to order like a food. You couldn't order just drinks. You'd have to order food with it.
$12 steak, which is pretty expensive. back
Well,
then.
what we'd do is we'd be like, I'll take a beer and a banana. And so, you know, they'd like bring us beer and we'd have like a whole bag of
Plethora of
bananas that nobody was eating, or like, you know, or like apples. We're like, what's your cheapest food on the menu? And we'll take that.
Yep.
Hysterical.
So, I mean, it was fine. It sucked for me because I couldn't really like go pitch. You know, it felt like I was a starter, and I would rotate between starting and relieving every 5th day. But like I had a program, but it sucked. And
I mean, it didn't really hold you back that much. I mean, you made it up to the bigs in 2013. Like,
yeah, I mean, again, I feel like I was very fortunate in my career with just like timing.
Yep.
You know, a lot of life is timing. Spent my first off season here. Came back, and Adam and I lived at Carolina Walk by the football stadium.
Yeah.
So we just had a blast. It was like I was
College again.
back in
Yep.
college, except no school, just
Yep.
working out. And met my wife, and so we're just having fun back in the fall and working out. And I think that like that was the first time that I took a break throwing. I mean, I didn't throw for like 2 to 3 months, which I think was very helpful just for my body. Like I worked out, focused on working out, and then I started throwing again, and that helped my arm. Like
93 that year?
that's when. So
That was
that
90.
was the
All
spring.
you needed was a little rest.
That was
man.
the
a little
thir-
R&R.
That's
Come on,
right.
Coach. Ray Tanner, I would have been throwing 95.
Could have been
if you
throwing
would've
that.
given me
Yeah,
some
you
time.
just let me screw off in Spain a little longer. But yeah, I mean, it's funny. I remember I got a call from the Angels in like early January, and they're like, "Hey, we want you to show up early February. Come out early for camp. Like you're going to be in minor league camp, but it's called like JIC camp. Like that's what we called it back then. It was just in case. Like so, you would show up. You know, big league would have their games, and have their pitchers and players, but they would send a couple guys for their to supplement their
From the JIC
roster.
in case,
Yeah, and so you would be there just in case something happened.
Yeah.
And so I was like, man, I'd much rather that's right in my birthday.
Yeah.
I think they had me fly out like before my birthday. I was like, man, I was going to party in Columbia for my birthday, you know? So I go out to JIT camp, you know, like a few weeks early. And, I mean, it was good because, like, the big league coaches were there and you could interact with them. So my first or second bullpen, like, we're throwing, I think it was my first bullpen there in front of, like, Angels staff. And the big league coaches are there. And I'm, like, throwing a bullpen, and I'm, like, dotting it. You know, I'm, like, arm side fastball, like, dotting. And one of the coaches was this awesome dude, and he's like, hey, man, that's the big league pitching coach behind you.
Cool.
And I was like, hey, watch this. And so I, like, took a fastball, and I just, like, reared back and skied it, like, right at his face, you know, because there was a fence back there. He was behind the fence.
I love that.
And it couldn't have been any better because literally, you know how the ball sticks in the fence? It stuck right in the fence. and I, like, turned around, and I was like, man, you know.
That is unbelievable.
I get a new ball, next pitch, dot it.
I'm just screwing with you, Case.
And so, you
As a
know,
second-year player, that's bold, dude.
I don't know if that made a name for myself, but, like, I got in.
That is
I got
bold,
in for
bold
just-
strategy, Cotton.
I know. I don't know where I got the nuts for that, but
That's awesome.
I got in a couple times and was pitching really well. Like, in fact, I hadn't even let a run in, so I was pitching with, like, the AAA team in minor league camp, and it's funny. I mean, this is just young and dumb. Like, maybe I probably would say this again, but our assistant GM was Scott Service, and he came up to me, and this was probably a week or so before, like, we're breaking, you know, we don't even have teams assigned. I mean, in minor league ball, they literally tell you, like, the last day of spring training, like, you're flying out the next day and you're going here. So, like, I didn't even know where I was going, but I was pitching with a AAA team. And he came to me and he's like, hey, man, like, you know, you're pitching really well. Like, where do you think you should play this year? And I looked him straight in the eyes, and I was like, the big leagues.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he, like, laughed, and he's like, no, seriously. And I was like, yeah, the big leagues.
Yeah.
I'm him.
And he's like, all right, well, and then he's like, okay, well, like, if we sent you to AA, is that a big deal? Or, you know, do you want to go? I was like, I don't care, man. I was like, I think I should be pitching in the big leagues, you know?
That's
I don't know,
I love
like, you know, I look back on that and I'm like, I don't know how I thought I was like.
Well, I think it was the confidence that you had from the 3 years at Carolina kicking ass.
Yeah.
That, like,
I mean, I was confident and, like, I was feeling myself at that time.
And the liquid
But it
courage,
was-
maybe?
yeah,
Or...
right there.
No, because
Yeah,
it was
you weren't
like,
drinking that
yeah, I
day.
wasn't drinking, you know? I think it was just, you also, like, I mean, does he expect me to say, like, oh, send me the A-ball?
Right,
you know?
exactly.
Like, no. I mean, so and part of it was, like, I think I truly did believe, like, hey,
You
I was
playing
good
at a
at
high
the
level too, yeah.
pitch there, you know? But so I went and got assigned to AA. I made one start. And, I mean, I was pitching with different stuff. Like, in Carolina, I was, like, 85 to 87. When I got the pro ball, like, somehow I jumped up throwing, like, 80, you know, I was sitting, like, 88 to 90, touching 93.
With as much as your ball moved, though. I mean, that's
Yeah, and,
freaking
like,
good
you know, the
stuff.
balls are different, too.
Yep.
Like, the balls are more like cue balls. Like, they don't have the seams, like the high seams like they do or like they did. You know, colleges switched to that now. And so I made one start in AA, and we go to Frisco, hit the road. It was like my first road trip, and I was a young guy. I guess maybe I was 22 or just turned 20. It was 2013. I just turned 23,
Yep.
and so I was younger on the AA team. In fact, like, there were some older salty vets there, you know, and, like, kind of bitching that I was a young guy because they're like, "It's your first year pro ball," and I was like, "Yeah," you know, like,
Deal with it.
You guys are
What have
old. You
y'all
must
been doing?
suck. You know?
What the hell are you guys doing here?
You guys are old. You must suck. You know.
Now a word from our sponsor, Tony Pope at State Farm. Switching is easy. We do it all the time. We switch on the lights, we switch the TV channels, and some of us switch partners while square dancing. Well, that's a stretch. But what's not a stretch is how you can switch and save with State Farm. In fact, State Farm agent Tony Pope, right here in South Carolina, can switch you over so you can start saving today. Tony and his team are ready to welcome you to the State Farm neighborhood. With Tony Pope, it's easy to switch and save. Just give him a call at 843-851-2222 or visit tonypope.com. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. We are proud to be sponsored by my buddies David Marshall and Shane Burrows and their law firm Lanier and Burrows. These guys are Gamecocks from undergrad through law school, and they bleed garnet and black. They practice all across South Carolina, helping people and families who have been injured or killed in car accidents, trucking accidents, work accidents, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, basically any type of incident. Unfortunately, though, for Stephen, they don't really handle all that criminal stuff. If you or someone you know was injured, let Shane and David investigate it at no cost to you. They will get you answers and will let you know if they can help. They only get paid if they get you a recovery. Give Lanier and Burrows Law Firm a call at 803-268-9800. Gamecock fans, if you want to look your best, go swing by Granger Owings on Main Street or in the Trenton Plaza. Granger Owings strives to deliver the best-in-class customer service paired with the finest fashion. Their stylists truly cater to each customer, starting with a personalized consultation every time, and help each individual build a wardrobe based on their lifestyle needs, occasions, and preferences. At Granger Owings, you will find the latest from classic, up-and-coming, designer brands of clothing and shoes for men and women, from business attire to custom clothing to sportswear, weekend wear, and formal wear. They dress their customers for every occasion.
And so, like, we hit the road, and you were always supposed to wear a collared shirt, like when on travel days, or when you were, when you weren't at home, you'd have to wear a collared shirt to the field and everything. And so, we're playing in Frisco, and it was still kind of cold, and we were getting our ass kicked this night, and I'm f***ing around in the dugout, just screwing around and not really doing it because I was supposed to start, I think, the next day or 2 days from then. And then, we literally got beat by 10, 11 runs. And there was no run rule that I remember. Yeah. In pro ball, it's you just grind it out to 9 innings, Yeah. And so we go back in, and they're like, "Hey, Roth, come to the manager's office." And I was like, "Oh shit, what'd I do?" I was it's only a week in, what did I screw up? And I sat down, and Tim Bogart was our manager, and he's like, and Mike Hampton was our pitching coach, juiced up dude from Atlanta, hit tanks when he was playing in Atlanta. He was the man, but he was always screwing around. And so Bogey, that's what we call him. Tim Bogart would look at me and the manager, and he was like, "Hey man, you're going to the big leagues." And I was like, "What?"
I'll be damned.
I told you so.
I was like, huh? And I looked at Hampton, and he's smiling, and I was like, "Show me the flight." I was like,
prove it.
I was like, show me the flight information. And he showed me the flight info, and I was like, seriously? And and so they shook my hand, and I walked out, and one of that salty vet guys goes what happened? And I was like, "Dude, I'm going to the big leagues." And he goes, "No shit." He's like, "I can't believe you're going to the big leagues." And I was like, I was kind of "Yeah, you must suck," So I grabbed my phone, and I called my
It
mom.
reminds me of the Step Brothers who goes, "Have fun living on the streets."
Yeah. So it's funny, my mom was out in California, we were in Frisco, Texas, and my mom was out in California. She had scheduled a work trip because she thought I was going to be in High A, which was out in California. It's close to, it was Inland Empire, a suburb of LA or whatever. So she thought that's where I was going to be. So she tried to schedule a work trip to work around it. I got sent elsewhere. So I knew she was flying out Friday night on a red eye. So I tried to call her and see if because I was flying into Anaheim the next day.
Yep.
And even still, I was they hadn't emailed me the flight yet. I was questionable. So I tried to call her. She didn't answer. Tried to call my wife. We were just dating at the time, my wife. And I was she didn't answer. I called my dad. He didn't answer. So I called Ryan Fisher, and he answered. And I was like, "Dude, I just got called up." And he goes, "Oh, dude, where's AAA?"
Yep.
And I was like, "No." I was like, "I'm going to the big leagues." And he's like, "Shut up." And so Ryan was the first person I told. And got to the big leagues, and it was a wild year from there.
Were you there the whole year?
No.
I mean, I know it's
2013 was
down.
a shit show year, dude. I racked up so many Sky Miles points.
Now you will throw your own card on there? Do you
So
get those
many.
miles?
Yeah, you get the miles.
Heck yeah.
And so many hotel points. I literally got called up, and so I walked in, you fly out never fly you nicely. Like I took a 5 a.m. taxi, landed in LA at like 11, went to the hotel, took a nap, showed up to the field at like as much as I can nap, you know, fired up, going to the big leagues. So I walk into the clubhouse, and like the first people I meet were Mike Trout, who was coming off his rookie year in 2012.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah. And like I wasn't, like I was just in JIT camp, so I wasn't in big league camp, so none of these guys really knew me, you know. I met Mike Trout, Trumbo, and Chris Iannetta. They're probably like, who the hell is this guy? And I'm like, yeah, I don't know why I'm here, you know. And then you start to meet all the guys, like, you know, we had, like, they weren't like, they were off to a 2-8 start, or maybe it was like a 1-7 start or something. So I mean, that day is like a whirlwind. Like you get in and you're meeting everybody, you know, and there's 25 guys on the team, but there's probably like a 1-to-1 staff ratio.
Yep.
So I'm like, you know, talking to Sosha and the pitching coach and everybody. You sign your contract and everything. And I didn't even read the damn thing. You know,
Just like, where do I sign?
Yeah,
What
like
did I just sign?
I did have an agent by the time, and he's like, "Hey, you're just gonna sign something." I was like, "Do I need to read it?" He's like, "Nah." You know, so
Don't screw this up.
yeah. So, you know, game starts at 7. Get in there, and you know, they had told me, they're like, "Hey, you're here like just to fill the gaps. Like something happens." And I mean, I'm anxious as hell. Like, you know, you're just like trying to stay loose.
Uniform, game starts.
Yeah, and I hadn't been out of the
freaking
bullpen in a few years, you know. And and so then we're losing, and they're like, "Roth, you're in," and I was like, "All right, it's great," you know. Like, get in there. We were playing the Astros, and literally, I remember the first pitch, like I threw, was a ground ball at shortstop, and I was like, "Well, this is easy," you know.
Just keep making them the grounders.
And I think I faced 6 guys, and it was 6 guys up, 6 guys down, and
This game's freaking easy.
yeah, and we scored a run like in between that, you know, and it was like, I don't know, call it 4-1 when I came in, and it was like 4-2, and they're like, he's like, "Hey, if we tie this, you're not going back out." I was like, "Yeah, I get that, like that's cool," you know. And so like I went in there 3 up, 3 down for the second inning, and come back in. It's the bottom of the 9th, and Pujols hit a walk-off double, like to win the game. And we're like all running out there, and I'm like, yeah, celebrating with these guys, and none of them know who none of them really know me.
What did you just do?
Yeah, and so like we got the win, and they gave me like a beer shower, and that was, you know, you're like celebrating in the clubhouse, and
That's pretty epic.
yeah,
That
dude,
is
it was a
freaking
wild first, like my first outing. Yeah, I got
That's
first
sick.
outing, got a win, like faced 6 batters, got 6 batters out. Couldn't have gone any
Should have
better.
been like, am I starting next week?
Yeah,
What's the
yeah.
deal here, guys?
So I mean, it was a whirlwind. Like, and that we were flying out the next day, and you were supposed to wear suits. I mean, I didn't have a suit, you know. Like I just had my collared shirts from AA, and so one of the guys was like, "Hey, does anybody?" That's why I was like, "What do we wear tomorrow?" They're like, "Oh, you need to wear a suit." I was like, "I don't have a suit." And the game was at 1 on Sunday, so I got called up on Saturday. We were flying out, you know, after the 1 o'clock game, and they were like, and so one of the guys was like, "Hey, Albert, do you have an extra suit?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can bring you one." And so I walk in Sunday morning, and there's like 2 suits, and one was like black with red pinstripes, and the other one was like gray with like blue pinstripes
This
or
is all
something.
me.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
this
it was
is
like
me.
Latinoed out, you know? Like he had like a white shirt with cufflinks, but I didn't have any cufflinks, obviously.
You gotta use
I had
this.
brown loafers as the dressiest shoes that I had.
That's unreal.
So like I'm literally, you know, like grabbing beers to like, that's, if you're a rookie, you're supposed to like bring beers and water for the bus ride to the plane. And so I get on, I'm like wearing this suit that's 4 sizes too big for me. You know, Pujols is like a big dude, you know? And I'm like only 6'1". And so I got this suit, and like cufflinks are like, the cuff shirt's like rolling through, you know, and I'm like trying to fold it up, wearing this black suit with brown loafers. So I like walk through, and I like go to give a beer, and Josh Hamilton's right there, and I was like, you know, Josh Story.
He's not.
Can't
Very
drink.
sober,
Yeah.
And I was like, you know, like, Here's some water, man. And but Josh was cool. He's like, nah, buddy, I can't drink that. And so I was like, okay, I kept going down the line. So, yeah, man, it was a wild 48 hours, like making it to the team. I like called my mom. I was like, hey, I need you to like overnight a suit to Minnesota. You know, I went to like Banana Republic the next day, and like, I had no money.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I wasn't, you know, I didn't make that much money. So
I just wore Albert's $10,000
Yeah.
suit. You send my men's wear.
yeah, I was like, hey, will you like overnight me, you know, a BP Skinner special? Like overnight me a BP Skinner special, please. And then I literally went to Banana Republic, and I was like about to pay, and I was like, I don't even know if I dropped like $1,000 on like clothes. And she was like, do you want to open up a credit card? And you can, so I was like, yeah.
I'm in the bigs now.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, I'll open up a credit card.
What's the limit on that? Bitch?
Yeah, so I didn't have to pay for the clothes that I just bought. It was on credit, you know, because I didn't have enough money.
That's unbelievable.
So then I bought some clothes so I didn't look like a freaking bum, you know, in the big leagues. And so that was my intro, dude. It was nuts. And so I spent like, I don't know, call it a couple weeks up, and got sent down after like an extra inning game. And I had like had some good innings. I had some bad outings. Got sent down, and me and my buddy Nick Miranda, who played at Florida.
Yeah. He's from Jacksonville, right?
Is he?
Digger Bowls.
I don't know. He's from all over, man. He talks all screwed up. Like he spent 2 years living in New Zealand. We became like really good buddies. He was in my wedding. We played together a couple years. So we were like in the big leagues together. We got sent down together. We're like all depressed, you know.
Back with the shitty players.
Yeah, we're like, oh damn. You know, we both went back to AA, and they like I was basically up and down between AA that whole year. So like literally we flew into Arkansas, and right as I stepped off the plane into Little Rock's airport, I got a phone call. And it was like LA, I didn't know who it was, so I answered it, and they're like, hey, this is like so and so. I forget who it was, like special assistant at GM, like, hey, we're gonna actually fly you back out to Anaheim tomorrow, go and stay at the hotel, just back shit up and come back. I was like, all right.
It's exhausting.
So literally went to the hotel, took another early morning cab ride to the airport, flew over there. And thankfully when they fly you there, you're flying first class, but you know, it is what it is. And so I land in Anaheim, and when I literally step off the plane, it's like they had trackers on you. You step off the plane and they're like, hey, don't come to the field. You may not be activated today. I was like, good. I hadn't slept in 3 days. Like, you know, so I like went and slept, and I slept till like 3, you know, which I would have had to have been at the field by then. And I like rolled over, and they were like, hey, you're not active. Like, you know, you can come and watch the game with us if you want in the GM box. I was like, all right, I'm not afraid to suck up a little bit if I can make some money here. So like I went and sat with the GMs in the box, which was pretty cool. I mean, it's wild. Like they're, you know, after every inning, they're like getting reports and stuff, and you know. So I sat there and watched the game with DePoto, and it was cool to just sit with them and talk. And then they, like next day in the morning, they're like, hey, we'll call you if we activate you. They called me and they're like, hey, show up early, throw a bullpen, and leave. We're not going to activate you. We're just going to fly you back the next morning. So I was like, all right. So I flew back, was back for like 4 to 6 days. Back in AA, made 2 appearances out of the bullpen, and then they flew me back to the big leagues. I was up for like a month and a half, and then they sent me down. They sent me back to the minor leagues. And so when I was in the minor leagues, I was starting. When I was in the big leagues, I was out of the bullpen. I never knew when I was throwing.
That sounds exhausting.
Well, you just like
what
you
day am
never.
I gonna have to?
Yeah, you never
God,
knew. Like
please.
you never knew where you're gonna be, which was hard. Like
Is that a mind game that they trying to play
Oh,
on like
dude.
these?
I mean,
Or is that just like
that's just
what has to happen?
the business. I mean, when you're that
That's brutal.
when you're that like last guy, it's a revolving door. And I didn't know.
Did a lot of those guys have like families and shit, or? I mean,
The
I'd
older
imagine
guys
that'd be-
do. The older guys do. You know, like I mean, I was 23. I was just like
This is awesome.
living out of the bag. I was like, this is cool. Every time I get called up, they give me 7 days of meal money. It's like $700, you know. But I mean, it was hard. It was like hard to, like it was like physically and mentally hard to like get settled, you know. And it's funny, like I got sent down kind of at the end of the season to AA. You know, hey, we're gonna stretch you back out to being a starter. I was like, great, like this is what I liked. And I went out there and started, and they were like, "Hey, you're throwing 85. Like, is your arm okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, you've been like yin yang, you know, snip snap, snip snap, snip, you know." I was like, "But what do you want me to do?"
I love a good offense.
Yeah, right.
For your style.
Tell you what, folks, download the Underdog app. It's legal in South Carolina. Use the code Tailgate547, and they'll give you up to $1,000 bonus cash and a free pick'em. So, I mean, what the hell's the matter? Go ahead and lock it in.
Listen up, Gamecock Nation. Meet your new favorite streamer, Deputy Smitty. A former police officer and diehard South Carolina Gamecock fan, Deputy Smitty brings action-packed content to life every night on Twitch starting at 9:30 p.m. Connect with him on social media by searching Deputy Smitty and join his growing community on Discord at discord.gg/Deputy Smitty. So grab a drink and catch the thrills, laughs, and plenty of Gamecock pride in every stream.
What's up, Gamecock fans? When you're getting ready to cheer on the Garnet and Black, get fired up with White Hot Cinnamon Whiskey out of Hollow Creek Distillery. With only 3 all-natural ingredients and 1/3 less sugar than other similar brands, is sure to be a touchdown at your next tailgate. Ask for White Hot Cinnamon Whiskey at your favorite spirits provider, and be sure to visit their award-winning Hollow Creek Distillery over in Leesville, South Carolina. Go Gamecocks.
So, I mean, that was like a hard year just because I didn't really have a role.
Yeah.
And it was just hard to kind of settle in. And, you know, like I was grateful for it because it literally went from making $1,200 a month as a minor league player to like, and I was still on like my mom's like, you know, insurance or whatever else, or maybe I had minor league insurance or something, but I was still like, my mom was paying my phone bill or something. My mom and dad were paying my phone bill and like car insurance. To where when I got called up to the big leagues, every time that I was in the big leagues, I was making like $3,000 a day, you know? And so I got like, it was,
That's good.
yeah, I was like, man, I'm rich, you know, as a 23-year-old. And I have 2 funny stories about that. So we were in Anaheim, we were in Seattle. And so like guys would go shop before game. I mean, you're there for like 4 to 5 days every now and then. So one of the guys was like, "Hey man, we're gonna go look at some stores. You want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I was like looking at this watch, and I was like, "Oh, this is nice." You know, he's like, "It's $500." He's like, "You're gonna make 6 times that today." I was like, "Yeah, but I don't know if I'm gonna make that tomorrow."
Yeah, I know.
Right. You know?
Have you not seen my track record the last couple weeks?
And then we went to like another store, and I was trying on these watches, and I didn't know anything about watches at the time. And I was like, "Oh, this is sweet. Like, how much is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's $22,000. And I was like, "Get this off of me," you know?
I don't want to break
I was
it.
like, "You have that," yeah. And so then, yeah, I think it was like, you know, at baseball, so you only get paid when you play, like, which
So if you're inactive, you're
yeah, well, you're getting paid, but let me like in the off season, you're not getting a check.
yeah.
Same thing.
It's a 17-week contract.
Yeah,
in the NFL.
that's exactly So that's what most sports is like. So, you know, you start getting paid during the season, and so it's like
it's escalated. It's very fast.
Yeah. So like May 15th, we got like a paycheck, and it was like half minor league check, half big league check, and so I got my check, and it was like $8,000, and I was like, my locker buddy was Jared Weaver, you know, and he's like, I was like, yeah, you know, I was fired up.
You sure is.
And he's like, "Oh, you excited about that check?" And I was like, "Yeah, dude, $8,000." I was like, "That's awesome," you know. And he's like, "You want to see my check?" I was like, "Yeah, dude." I was like,
"Hey, put them down, and we're just gonna scramble them up, and whoever grabs whoever."
That's what you get, you know. I was like, I'll look at it if you show me. And sure as hell, I won't forget the first 3 numbers, the first 3 digits on that check. It was $548,000. Like I was like, "This is your 2-week paycheck?"
Yep.
He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You should see what I paid in taxes already this year." And
like, I don't care.
I was like,
I don't feel bad for you.
I was like, holy shit, this is so much money. And that was kind of like the good thing about that year, as hard as it was, like mentally and physically, of like trying to play, you know, and there's this pressure that you're putting yourself as like, am I f***ing up my opportunity to like make it, that, you know, of what you've always wanted to do.
Yep. But
there's also this thing where I was like lucky enough to mentally realize like, this is not real life. Yep. Like it's like a fairy tale land, you know, like
it's a great mindset.
Like you get into the clubhouse and they're like, "Do you need anything?" I'm like, I don't think so. And you're like, well, if you need anything, the club you will. I was like, well, like, what would I need? I like need some new socks, you know, like, you know,
Where can I go buy those?
Yeah, yeah. And they're like, no, like if you need food, ask him, he'll go get it, you know. And it was just, it's a fairy tale land. Like it's not real life, and I recognized it in that year too, especially
23.
Yeah, but it's like
gets to the bigs after 4 years of college.
Oh yeah, I mean it was insane. Like, and my buddy Nick, he was lucky. He did that the year before and was struggling to like, you know, try to stay. And it's like, it's funny. I look back on it now, and it's like, man, I was so fortunate, and I was lucky. I think at some point it potentially like hurt me from a development standpoint, but obviously there was so much fun, like making the big leagues, and I mean doing what I always wanted to do since I was a kid. Like it was as good as it got, you know. But baseball was more fun in the minor leagues because the pressure in the big leagues, just because our team sucked. Like we had Albert Pujols was making $25 million that year. Like
Jared Weaver was making good money.
Jared Weaver was making like, I don't know, some stupid amount of money. You know, Jared Weaver, C.J. Wilson. I mean, we had like an all-star lineup, and we were bottom of the league. Yep. You know, so everybody was just. It was not a fun place to be around.
Right.
You know, it was like kind of the opposite of like Carolina. Yep. And so it was like the baseball was cool. Like you were in the stadium, it's like doing what you wanted, but off the field you were like, it was just not as. It was so different.
Yeah,
you know?
I could imagine.
So you did three total years in the bigs. 13, 14, 16?
Yeah, I was like,
how do you get called? Like, how does it become technically a year? One game?
So, like, I didn't really know. So, like, if you ask, like, my time sheet, I mean, I made, like, it's all pro rata.
Okay.
So, like, I was up and down for 3 years, but I really only had, I don't know, 100 and something days, maybe more in the big leagues.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that first year is when I spent a bunch of days, like, half the year, I guess, kind of up and down.
Yep.
And then 2014, I spent most of the time in AA, which was good because I got to like pitch and settle in, got to all-star, like made the all-star team in AA, and then got called up. And I think the hardest thing is like when you're starting and you get called up and you have to switch like the routine.
Yep. And
people don't like back then. To me, it was a thing, but the balls were different. Like the big league balls were different than the AA balls. You know, like the big league balls were like even more cue ball-y than, I mean, when I made it,
so you get more movement,
more movement, but also it's like, you know, this whole thing about sticky stuff on the baseball.
Yeah.
You needed that shit.
Yep.
Like I went and, so when we made it to Minneapolis, we're playing the Twins. It was early April. Yeah, it was mid-April, you know, and we're starting a game and it's like 35 degrees.
Yeah, but it's still cold up there.
Yeah. And they're not in a dome for whatever stupid reason. They didn't build a dome, you know? Like Target Field is not covered for what, I don't know. I don't know what idiot thought about that. They should have spent
the football stadium's covered.
They should have thought it like for another, you know, whatever $1 million, cover the damn stadium. And so it's 35 degrees out there and I had like, you know, huge coats on, and Joe Blanton was starting. It was like the 5th inning. They're like, Roth, get going. And I was like, jacket number 1, jacket number 2, jacket number 3. And they're like, hey, next batter. I'm like, I didn't even throw him yet. You know? And I'm like trying to break a sweat, you know, because the balls are just like, literally, they're just dusty, you know. And so I get in there and like came in with 2 outs, and I tried to throw a slider, and it just popped right out of my hand. The dude like literally, you know, hit it, and I was like, oh shit, that's out. And he just, left fielder, I think it was Hamilton, caught it on like the track, and like I got out. I was like, I got lucky, you know. And I came in the dugout and I looked at the catcher and I was like, how do I grip these balls? You know, like I was like, I'm not sweating. And he's handed me the tar rag. He's like, here you go. And so I like rubbed it all over my
this
glove,
game's easy.
you know. And that's when I like, you know, I was like, you had to use it because you couldn't. It was 32 degrees. I couldn't sweat, you know. True. So there was no like moisture in your hands, or even you could like. I wasn't sweating even on my forehead, you know. So it was just a difference.
Use your tongue, man. He's got to.
Yeah. I mean, that's right. You know, it's like that was the trick. You'd have to like lick your tongue and wipe So you like lick your tongue. I mean, I did every now and then. You like lick your tongue on your first 2 fingers, but then wipe your hand, but you're only wiping, your pinky and your ring finger, So you're like, acting like you're wiping it. So there's all sorts of tricks that you got to do. You like hide pie tar on your glove, on your hat, on your belt, on your shoes. I mean, you got to be tricky.
All right, talk about you retired at 18. What was that decision like? Was it just it's time? Like, I want to go do something else?
Man, so, in 15, I was designated for the second time. And so I signed a free agent deal with the Indians, made it up to the big leagues with the Indians, didn't pitch that year, and then went and played down in Dominican, had a freaking blast down there, signed with the Rangers. And so that year, like that 2015 and 2016 year was hard for me because like my dad was diagnosed with cancer. I was like late in the season signing, didn't even know if I was going to play that year. And then went and had like a really good year in 2016, made it up to the big leagues for 2 days, pitched against the Red Sox. That was my last outing in the big leagues. Pitched against Jackie. He got a bullshit double.
No.
Ask him about it. But I gave up like 3 home runs that day. It was July 4th. The Boston fans loved me that day. Just gave them all sorts of fireworks. But I mean that I let's see, 2017 I signed with the Giants, and then broke my finger and then I opted out with the Giants, signed with the Rays, broke my finger on my pitching hand, snapped my finger in half.
That makes it tough.
Yeah, so I had to rehab that, and made it back to, went down to the Dominican, signed with the Cubs for 2018 season, and then started off really well, got put on like the fake injury list, and then got traded to the Rangers, and I was dealing with like my finger was good, but then I had an incident game where I like kind of tweaked my knee. But I just, went through that season, finished out the year, wasn't feeling great on my knee, pitched just okay, but at that point I was 28. Like you're getting older and you're not getting, it's just starting to change, right? Like you're 28, I was married.
Yep.
Like that was the 2017 season was when Rachel hit the road with me.
Yep.
And I mean, that was our first year of marriage. Like, that was tough, man.
Yeah.
Like, I would say minor league baseball and a marriage made game, man.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough. Like, she would stay like wherever like the host city was. So I was in Sacramento or whatnot. And so I went down. So after the 2018 season, came back to Greenville, rehabbed my knee, and signed with the Dominican team that I had played with multiple times down there. And every time I went down the Dominican, it like made me fall in love with the baseball again, because it was like its purest sense. Like down there, like they you win. Like they want you to win. Like you get paid more if you win, and whereas in minor league baseball, there's just, I mean, it's a business. Like there's still stuff. How did I do? And like, everybody wants to win, but like, if you didn't win and your guys went 2 for 4, or like you pitched well, you're just kind of like, it's just a different feeling. And so when I went down to the Dominican that fall of 2018, it was like a week and a half in, and I was like, man, I just want to be back home in Greenville with my wife and my dog. And I kind of knew I was done. And so like mentally, I knew I wasn't into playing baseball anymore.
Yeah.
And so I stuck it out past like Thanksgiving. And they came to me and they were like, hey, we're going to like big sexy Bartolo Colon wants to make a retirement tour. And so he's going to take your spot. I was like,
thanks.
Great. Yeah. I was like, cool, man. Thank you. Can I fly home tonight? It's funny. Like and then right when that happens, like there's a Mexican winter league team, there's a Venezuelan winter league team. So I was really there for the money.
Yep.
You get paid in like freshly printed $100 bills.
Yep.
And yeah, they worked. I don't know. They worked. So I'm guessing they're real. But like, it's funny, like right when that happened, like, I don't know if they put like a bolo out or something, but like I got a text from like a Venezuelan team They're like, hey, do you want to come to Venezuela? And I'd never played in Venezuela, which was like pretty dangerous to go down.
We've heard
And,
from our last episode.
And so they were like, we'll pay you 25 grand cash a month. And I was like, holy, like, yeah.
Where you
I was
getting
like, hold on. So I called Rachel, and Rachel's like, if you want to go down there to just make money, like, you're going for the wrong reason. And I was like, all right, you're right. So I went home, and like, and that's when I was done. And it was, I mean, I was comfortable with it. Like, it was good. It was like good timing. It kind of like, it was the series of 2018, kind of like that whole year kind of culminating to just being like, my heart wasn't in it anymore. And if it wasn't, then there was no way I was going to be successful.
Right.
I mean, that's an incredible story. From college to the minors, to the bigs of the minors, to the bigs of the minors, to the bigs of the minors, to going to the Dominican, to almost going to Venezuela. All right, well, like, your wife, Rachel, like, she has a good head on her shoulders. She kind of reasoned with you pretty good. Talk about her, meeting her, family life now, what you're up to now.
So we met in the fall of 2012. Yeah. So she was a cheerleader at Carolina. You know, it's funny, like Adam was dating Adam's girlfriend at the time. Rachel was a roommate to her. And so Adam and I were rooming together. So that's how we met. And then, you know, unfortunately for Adam and them back then, they were separating as we were like getting together. So Rachel and I dated. We got married in December 2016. And she hit the road with me in 2017, which was like, you know, presented its own challenges. And then, in 2018, we like settled in Greenville. Like, Greenville became home for us, really. And I grew up there, but I didn't really want to go back. I had no desire to go back.
Right.
In 2015, well, Rachel graduated from Carolina in like summer of 2014. And so I'd been in the big leagues, like up and down, and finished a year in the big leagues that year. And I was like, let's do something stupid. Like, let's live in Hawaii for the off season. So like, sure enough, we just spent 3 months in Hawaii. And she like worked for like an event planner, and I like rented surfboards on the beach. It was so fun. It was awesome, dude. Like, and I got in like great shape because you'd have to pull seriously. Yeah, I finished the season in Seattle. They're like, hey, you're not making the playoff roster. So I like flew home from Seattle to Charlotte, like packed my stuff with Rachel, and like repacked it for just like bathing suits. And then we flew out to Hawaii the next day, and I was renting surfboards and you know,
running the business world.
Yeah, like digging stuff for like umbrella. I was like your standard beach boy, bro. You know, it was fun. And we were out there. We were out there for like 3-4 months maybe. Yeah, we came back like right after January because I needed to like come back and I was working out and throwing. I would rollerblade to the gym, rollerblade back. It was awesome. And so like she started looking for jobs in January, and a lot of the stuff was like Columbia and Charleston, but then this one job popped up in Greenville, and she's like, that's the one I want. And I was like, no,
Not home.
no. But then that 2015, like we lived close to downtown, and it just felt like home, you know, up in Greenville. I reconnected with some friends that were like high school buddies and stuff like that, and even earlier, and so it just felt like home. And so we've been there since then. In 2018, we bought a house, actually sight unseen, like literally.
You almost had to.
At that point, like we bought a house. I was out in Texas, and we knew we wanted to live in Greenville, like in the off season moving forward, whether I was playing or not. And so we bought a house, and I like called my mom, and I was like, and I had my real estate license at the time, and wasn't doing residential by any means, but called my mom. I was like, hey, I'm just put a contract on this house. Like, will you drive by and make sure
there's a home there.
Make sure it like actually looks what it looks like, you know? And so we ended up buying that house and moved to Greenville, and it worked out. Rachel got a job from there, and we had our COVID hit. We were holed up in that house together. We had a lot of fun, but we had we've got Harper and Gray. Harper was born in 2021. And then Gray was, so I was like, you know, my last baseball was 2018 professionally, but I played for.
I saw that you played in some great.
Played for Great Britain.
World
Yeah.
Championship.
So I went back out in 2022. So I played in 2012 was the first time I played for Great Britain, and then I went and played like 2016 for the WBC qualifier, and then played again in like a Euro in 2019, which was really just like a beer drinking trip in Germany.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah,
awesome.
no brainer.
And
Then
then
in college again.
yeah, and then 2022, it was like the World Baseball Classic qualifier in Regensburg, which was the same place that we played in 2012. And so when I went in 2012, it was like there were 4 to 6 of us that were like pro players. The rest were like, you know, older bum beer drinking players. Well, it was reverse. I was that guy. I was the old beer drinking player in 2022. Well, we ended up winning and qualifying for the World Baseball Classic, which was that next spring in 23. Great Britain had never qualified for the World Baseball Classic, so we played France, whooped their ass, played Germany, beat them in Germany, which was awesome, and then we played Spain the next day, which is really just a bunch of Dominicans. And I mean, I say that laughingly because Great Britain was like half Americans, you know. Anyway, so I get to pitch in like Hatton Verone since 2019, you know, and it was fun. We ended up winning that game. We're celebrating in the locker room, and they give us bottles of beer, glass bottles, and we're like celebrating. And somehow I just feel this like sharp pain in my wrist. And I'm like, look, and I'm bleeding everywhere, and I got like someone had broken their bottle off, and it like stabbed me in the wrist.
Good God.
Somebody didn't want you pitching.
I know. So like thankfully we had won the tournament. I was supposed to go to Oktoberfest that next day. Didn't go.
Brutal.
Went to the hospital.
God.
Thankfully,
Have you been to Oktoberfest?
yeah, I'd been to Oktoberfest.
Oh my God.
Tons of fun.
Unbelievable.
But you know, went to the hospital. Thankfully, it didn't like hit an artery or like a ligament. So they just stitched me up and I was good to go. But so we qualified. Great Britain qualified. They wanted me to come back in 23 to play, like during spring training timeline. Well, my wife was pregnant, like we were pregnant with our second. And so we're like coming up, and it was going to be pretty close to when he was due. But I was like, oh, I'm in the clear. And so my wife starts having preterm labor. We go to the hospital, like we get transferred, you know, it's like off and on for a couple of days. Like day 4, it's like we thought we had calmed it down. So it was like 6 a.m. I roll down, like grab my Starbucks. They're like, hey, like we had just seen the doctor. They're just like contractions stopped. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get a coffee. Yep. She literally calls me. She's like, you need to come back up here. Like contractions are starting again. They're moving me in another room. And I was like, oh God. And this was, you know, he'd been baked for 31 weeks, like that day. So moved to a room. Well, I got my coffee. Yeah.
Good thing.
Got my coffee.
I was ready to go now.
Go back, you know, I was ready to go. We go to the room, he was born, and then they immediately take him to NICU. So he was in NICU he was 9 weeks early, he was in NICU for like 2.5 months or something. Wow. So I missed the Great Britain thing. Yeah, they're like texting me, they're like, hey, we're about to announce the roster. I was like, take me off. Like,
I ain't doing it now.
There's no way I'm coming, you know.
I love drinking beer, love throwing the ball. But
Yeah, I was like,
calls.
you know, I can't come. So thankfully, like, Gray was in the NICU, like 2 surgeries later. We got out, I think it was 77 days that he was in the NICU. We got out and he was fine. And I mean, now he turns 2 next week, and I mean, he's just a little lunatic.
It's incredible, yeah.
He's right now he's acting like Steven. You know? He's wild.
He's an Aquarius or what?
Yeah, he's February 8th.
Yeah.
So
There's something
about it, man.
That's Weston. Shit. No wonder why he's such a
so
pain in my butt.
we've got Harper, you know, Harper and Gray. I always joke around that we named Harper after Harper's. We did
Which is now home team.
Yeah, which is now home team.
Yeah.
But man, I did love when Harper had that dip trio.
It was so good. Yes.
I always made it a dip duo instead of like the salsa. I wanted the double pimento cheese, the heated up pimento cheese.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're in Greenville, and you know, got those 2 little little rascals running around.
What does the business world look like now for you? What you up to?
Yeah, so that I'm in commercial real estate, development and investments. I got into real estate while I was still playing baseball. So the 2016 season that I was out in Round Rock, we're traveling to like all these cities, like, I don't know about you guys. When we were in college, that was like the great financial crisis, but I didn't know that was a crisis.
We had no idea.
I mean,
still
they were
getting my
still
40
serving
bucks a
beers
week.
here,
Yeah.
like, we were still getting our meal money from the university. So, I didn't really know anything, even though I was like a business major. Didn't really pay attention to any of that.
Really good student athlete.
Really good student athlete. And like it never like crossed my mind, but like 2016, we're traveling around to like Oklahoma City, all these big places, and there was always cranes in the sky.
Yeah.
So a volunteer first base coach, his day business was insurance, but like all of his investments were in commercial real estate. And so I was like, man, I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So I went and hooked up with some guys in Greenville in the NAI office and started as a broker. And I was like, man, I don't want a paycheck. I just want to learn. And I was fortunate enough to do that. And so that's kind of what sparked my love and competitiveness for real estate. So like when I transitioned out of baseball, I knew exactly where I was going into working at NAI as a broker. And I was able to take like that competitive spirit that I got on the baseball field and just drive it into that business.
Yeah.
So I was at NAI up until recently. I left with my business partner. His name is Michael also.
Okay.
And so we had started toiling around with developing and buying buildings a few years ago together. And so we kind of spun off and we're doing that ourselves. So we're like 2 weeks into the business, we've got emails, that works.
That's awesome.
We don't have a website. Somebody asked me for a business card the other day. I was like, I don't have any of those either.
Can we just tap phones?
Yeah, I was like, here, call me.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been good, and we've been very fortunate. Hopefully we don't have like World War III.
The real estate world the last 2 years has been kind of crazy.
Oh yeah,
Rates as high as they are. Deals aren't penciling. Space too a little bit.
Yeah. So since I got in the business, like 2018.
Yeah, as good as it's been.
2019 has just been crazy.
Yep.
And COVID obviously hit, and that threw everybody off. But then
Rebounded.
the spur, like the growth that the Southeast was seeing before that, just almost like lit on fire.
Yeah.
It was like they just poured gasoline on it. And so we've been as busy as we need to be, even despite like
Market
financing
conditions.
being
Yeah.
hard, like interest rates being up. It's just we still have people moving to the upstate, to South Carolina in general, which is great.
Columbia's reaped the benefit too. You drive around here in Columbia compared to what we were in college. Like this
it's
city's
nuts.
on fire.
Yeah,
Night and day
I mean
difference.
Scout Motors, that was Scout Motors
Shiny
investment. That's bigger than the original BMW investment up in Greenville.
Yeah.
So that has the potential to change the entire landscape of Columbia.
Yeah.
And so it's awesome to see from a state like obviously Columbia still has a very special place in my heart, and I wish that there were more Gamecock fans up in Greenville. So
unfortunately, it's freaking
kinda
orange and purple.
I
all
know,
the
and
time up there.
my business partner is a Clemson guy. We give each other a hard time, and so we're full of Clemson people up there. But we've been fortunate from real estate wise.
Yeah, but I know you're doing well just because I've seen some of the stuff you guys have done, and you were such a good student athlete, but now you're don't have to be the
turn that
athlete.
studiousness into
The competitive nature.
Well,
That's the real estate world.
I mean, that's honestly, I think it's just what I learned in Carolina, like in the classroom. Not that it was bad. It's just, here I am, 7 years after pro career. It's not like there's a ton of stuff that you really take in. Having that degree is important.
Yep.
Like it's a signal to people
Yep.
of like an accomplishment. And I love going back to the Moore School, but part of just business that I found is if you just have that thing in you that tells you you can figure it out, like if you just have something where you just go to figure it out, then you can be successful.
Yeah, the grind.
Nobody tells you, like there's just nobody tells you what to do. And when you're a broker, you kind of work for yourself, even if you're working from under other people. But there's just, you either figure it out or you don't, you know. And
if you want to make money, you better figure it out.
yeah, if you want to make money, you just figure it out. So there'd be times where I'm like, I don't know this, so I just would call somebody and I'd be like, hey, I have this question, like, you know. And you just can't be afraid to talk to people and just try to grind and figure it out. And so I'm lucky and dumb enough to just not be afraid to talk to anybody.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Just put yourself out there.
Yeah, 100%.
The worst that happens, they say, go f yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah,
not
I'm going
that's
home.
not gonna hurt me. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's plenty of people that I've called and they're like, I'm never selling, you know, leave my number. And I'm like, all right. And then I call them like
Call
3
you back
months,
next year.
3 months later, I'm like, hey.
You miss me?
So, you know, it's been fun.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do some rapid fire questions.
Let's do it.
You got them too?
Yep.
Why don't you bat lead off?
What's your favorite memory, South Carolina baseball?
Wow, man, that's tough. I think the one that just jumps out is 2010 when we were in the clubhouse on a rainy. It was raining, and we were doing this Avatar seance, which is what started the whole bat on ball thing.
Yeah.
And we walked in, and Calvi, I think he was coming to tell me that I was like pitching next, you know, out of the bullpen. And he walked in and he was like, and closed the door, you know, and then we were doing this stupid seance while we were losing, you know, the opening game against I don't want to say some no-name team, but I mean, we were the 1 seed and they were the 4 seed, you know. And he walks in and he's like, what the hell? Closes the door and then comes in later. Just that stupidity is what jumps out.
Yeah.
And that's what.
Those are the memories. Those are the
Yeah.
moments.
That's the fun stuff that you remember. Obviously the winning was so much fun.
2 national championships.
Yeah.
But
Give a
but
shit
just
about
that
that.
stupid stuff was
No, the
so
Avatar.
cool.
The Avatar.
But I mean that's the stuff that
100%.
led to, you know, us winning games.
Yeah.
you
Heck
know?
yeah.
So
All right. I mean, everybody else would probably vote you here, but who was the funniest teammate you played with?
oh man. Funniest teammate. That's hard. I think Robert Berry was, but he didn't know he was. You know?
He's an Orlando guy.
Yeah.
In high school.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
he would just tell
He's
us
a-
stories.
He's a cop here now.
Country boy, yeah.
He would tell us stories about how he raised hawks from, you know, that flew out from Hurricane Katrina.
I remember sitting
His,
next,
his
dude.
dad was the sheriff of the
Yeah,
property.
yeah.
I
Got us out of a lot of
I
trouble.
sat next to his parents in Omaha. But,
You know, honestly, no. So let me take that back. Robert Berry was funny, but I don't think he meant to be. Scott Wingo was so
Wingo's
full of shit. I mean, he was so full of shit that he was so funny. You know,
And he didn't miss a beat in
No,
conversation when he was lying.
no.
his ass
witty, man. That guy had. Oh, he was so funny. God, he was great. Just witty as hell too.
What's one thing people don't know about you outside of baseball?
off. Everything you've accomplished.
Oh man, that's one thing they don't know about me. Now that I've gotten older, I think of, we talked about being dangerous.
Yep.
That's all I think about now. I'm like, how can I be dangerous to protect my kids, my family? And my wife's like, hey, you need to calm down. And I was like,
You're like, no,
all right.
I'm ready to check whip ass.
Yeah,
And
and literally I started jiu-jitsu last year just so I can
oh, wow.
try to kick someone's ass.
That's incredible. All right. This, I guess, isn't a question. I guess it is a question. Do you remember there was I think it was down here in 5 Points in 2015. You were at there's a pizza bagel place here,
Okay.
2015, and supposedly everybody was in there late night. You were in there. You were right behind this kid, and they said they didn't have bagels. And this guy absolutely lost it because you were right behind him in line, and he about pounced over the counter and beat up the cashier because they said they didn't have bagels. And he's like, do you know who the guy behind me is? If you don't have a bagel for me, you better have a bagel for him. Do you remember this?
I think vaguely, yeah. Why?
Because that's the kid right there.
There he is.
The drunken kid.
He just wanted a bagel.
He just wanted a bagel.
He wanted you to have a
Oh,
bagel
man.
more than him.
I thought you were gonna tell a story about me getting punched in 5 Points, but literally that was 2015 too. Maybe that was that same night. I got punched in the face, and the next day I'm
I gotta get dangerous.
I was bleeding all over the face, all over, laughing as I'm like getting dragged out of the bar, and I got hit. Like I don't know, I didn't start it.
Holy shit.
And the next day I was going to President Pastidi's like tailgate, and I'm like wearing glasses. My face is swollen, He's like, what happened? I was like, I got punched in 5 points. It was fine.
No big deal.
I'm good. I thought that's where you're going. That may have been the same night, though. That's so funny.
Did he have a black eye, or was he bleeding from the nose that night?
I don't think so.
You would remember.
Yeah. He wanted his pizza bagel,
All right, who was the toughest hitter you ever faced during your career?
Oh, man. Well, this is a brag because I got Big Poppy's in the book. I struck him out.
Did you?
That
really?
was like the only good thing that
Lefty on
happened.
lefty.
That was
That's
the only
pretty
good
sick.
thing that happened that day in at the Red Sox. Like Dustin Pedroia was like 3 for 3 off me. Big Poppy struck him out. So
Hey, took down the big guy.
yeah, so I got that guy.
Took down the giant.
Yeah, I mean that like I faced him like in the big leagues. I faced him, Altuve.
Yeah.
I mean I'm sure there's some like
Big
the whole
strike
Red
zone, small strike zone.
right, yeah, Big Poppy, big dude. No, that's probably like the best hitter that I've got out. That's
pretty cool.
That's in the book, so that was a cool one.
What was your favorite stadium to play in?
It's got to be like the Rangers, the Red Sox or the Cubs, just from a big league perspective. I mean, in 2013 when I pitched against the Cubs, I remember this was before they made the renovations. Like when you showed up as a guest player, you're like bumping butts because the
guest locker room
the
is so
West
shitty.
locker room's like tiny,
They make it miserable, yeah.
Yeah, it was tiny, but I came in relief, and Wrigley was like, I just remember I looked out, and normally most of them had like a big field, like a big jumbotron in the outfield, and they do now, but back then they didn't. So like all the lights were like around the field, so I looked out and it was like so dark, and I just distinctly remember that. So like Fenway and Wrigley was cool just because of the history.
That was
awesome.
like Lambeau.
But I mean, from a college perspective, I mean, there was nothing playing like Carolina,
Yep.
but it was really fun to go play at Arkansas. Like they were really good fans. Like, they would,
I thought Arkansas fans talked the best shit.
yeah, the best.
Yeah, but at
best
the
shit.
end of it, like you said, at the end of it, it wasn't like
Yeah,
malicious.
they
it was
weren't
just like,
mean. Yeah, it was just like good.
It was funny,
It was
like-
good, funny
Yeah.
shit talking.
Yeah.
And like after the game, if you played well, they're like, "Hey man, if you didn't like, if you took it like like a bitch, then
Right.
they would give you a hard time.
Yeah.
But if you were
Sporty
like, if
about
you
it.
were sporty and fun, they would like give you props after the game. That was fun. So like Arkansas was really fun to play at.
All right, is there one game you wish you had back in any stage of baseball, high school, college, professional?
I mean, of course, I can't. There's
Just
probably
run it.
too many, honestly.
Yeah.
Like,
All the ones I lost, I want back.
yeah,
Which
You
weren't
know.
many in college.
you're right. I mean, it's funny. Even if you think like that third year when we made the College World Series in 2012, I remember I pitched that we lost game 1 and we lost game 2, and I pitched game 2 and we were losing, and I remember like it was 2-1, like, and I sat down and like we were all the bounces we got in 10 and 11,
Not so much.
like we weren't getting. We were on the opposite end of that. And like
Yeah.
I remember I sat down after an inning and like I think Evan Marzulli like smashed the ball and they made some ridiculous play, and like Christian and I looked at each other and Christian was like, dude, he's like, this is what it had to feel like, what Florida
yeah.
felt like last year against
Yeah.
us. And I was like, yeah, and I wouldn't say like we knew then we were gonna lose. You could just feel like they were just catching all of the bounces, and then it just happened. So it's like, you want that game back, but it's not like, it's just like sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Right.
Dude,
That was awesome.
Yeah, man, this was fun. This is good to see you guys.
great seeing you. Thank you for joining us.
That would cheers you. I don't even.
I know we're fresh out. Beer man.